After waiting like 7 years for a new Direct, Nintendo dropped a trailer for a brand new Paper Mario game out of nowhere called The Origami King, and as if that wasn't cool enough, the game was also confirmed for a 2020 release, which I totally called like a year ago, by the way. However, while most people are excited to not only get a new Nintendo game during a global pandemic, but a Paper Mario game at that, I've noticed that a good portion of that franchise's hardcore fanbase is skeptical of the game's integrity due to the fact that even after the riots caused by Color Splash, it still looks considerably different from the Thousand Year Door. However, if you ask my potassium-deficient rump, I think that regardless of how similar Origami King may or may not be to the Thousand Year Door, it's still gonna be a great game. Why is that, you ask? Well, pour yourself a glass of freshly squeezed bull juice, leave 3 pickles in your neighbor's mailbox so he knows that you mean business, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the world's cheapest proctologist, Cameron all one word, to tell you why Paper Mario the Origami King is gonna be great. Alright, so like I said, the main concern with Origami King is that since the game doesn't appear to have the exact same mechanics as the game most fans consider to be the highlight of the series, Thousand Year Door, then it must not have any chance of being as good. Truthfully, I never actually finished the Thousand Year Door myself, not because I didn't love it while I was playing it, but because I literally started it right after I finished playing the original Paper Mario, so I just kinda wanted to play something else for a little bit, and sadly, I never got back to it. However, I could easily say that as much as I loved Paper Mario 64, the Thousand Year Door perfected everything that made the original great, so even though I only made it about halfway through the game, I can confidently say that I've seen more than enough to agree that it's currently the best game in the entire series. And even though I actually liked Sticker Star and Color Splash for what they were, I can see why fans so desperately want Paper Mario to return to its roots. But as far as the paranoia about Origami King not being a return to the classic formula goes, though, well, if I'm being honest, I think this is a completely valid concern to have since it's probably not going to be the same exact thing. Sure, the battle system with stickers and cards seems to have gotten the boot in favor as something a little more traditional, and they even brought live audiences and partners back as well, but even so, there's still a good amount that seems quite different from the Thousand Year Door, like some open world sections, and judging by how vague the first trailer was, it certainly felt like they were hiding something. I mean, surely fans not buying Color Splash and burying the hell out of all of its trailers was enough to send Intelligent Systems the message that they want the classic style back, but if Origami King's really gonna give the people what they want, then why would they make them wait to find out? I suppose it is possible that they want fans to sweat over it for a little while, only to make it that much sweeter when they learn more about the game. But even though I think that actually would probably make fans happier than it would be to just show them everything in the first trailer, I honestly think that's a little bit of a reach, because first of all, just look at the partners. Sure, it's cool to have allies in battle again, but while the partners in the Thousand Year Door were all based on characters and enemies that already existed in the Mario universe, they all still had their own unique looks and personalities, whereas the characters in Origami King are more generic than my son's stupid-ass haircut. So even though the first Mario trailer was extremely vague, I still think it's crystal clear that Mario's allies aren't going to be as cool as they were in the Thousand Year Door or even Paper Mario 64. However, uninspired partners aside though, I still think Origami King looks pretty promising, even if it's not the exact same thing as the Thousand Year Door was, which probably enrages some hardcore fans to hear me say that, but while I think the game absolutely needs to be more similar to the classic games, I don't think it needs to be a clone either. I mean, remember how mad the Zelda fanbase got when Wind Waker came out? Granted, the actual gameplay from that game wasn't nearly as different from the first 2 3D Zelda games as the last few Paper Mario games were from their first 2 entries, but fans were still fuming that Nintendo dared to try something different, and all that fury forced them to release Twilight Princess, which ended up being a great game in its own right and everything, but personally, I thought it was just Ocarina of Time 2.0, whereas Wind Waker was far more original. And yeah, I know that Thousand Year Door was just Paper Mario 64 2.0, so it's not necessarily a bad thing to perfect an already existing game with a dose of steroids, but my point is that if there isn't that much that could be done to make the Thousand Year Door that much better without changing anything, then why even bother making a new game at all? I mean, like I said, Paper Mario 64 was great, but the Thousand Year Door perfected those mechanics in the same way how games like Mega Man 2, Resident Evil 2, and Tony Hawk 2 perfected their respective engines. And with those franchises, every game that came afterwards was at best only slightly better than the last game until they changed things up. The reason why the majority regards the aforementioned games as the best in their respective franchises isn't necessarily because they were the best, it's just that they were the games that had the most improvements over their predecessors when there was still a lot of tweaking that was left to be done with the formulas. And when they did change things up, sometimes it worked out and sometimes it didn't. So honestly, I think Intelligent Systems strayed from the Thousand Year Door mechanics not only because the Mario and Luigi RPG series already existed, but because they didn't want Paper Mario to become like Assassin's Creed, where every game is pretty much the same thing as the last. The problem though is that Paper Mario trying new things just never topped the Thousand Year Door, so naturally, fans are gonna blame the fact that the formula saw a change at all. I mean, I know this is all subjective, but Tony Hawk's 3 and 4 were only like 10% better than 2 was, but since they played it safe and didn't try to do anything drastically different, it ensured that the games wouldn't be bad. However, by not taking risks, it also ensured that the games could only be so much better, which I'd imagine is pretty hard for developers to decide which path to take, which is why I try not to be too hard on Intelligent Systems for trying new stuff. But even though I'm only like one of 5 people who actually enjoyed Color Splash for what it was though, I totally agree that the series strayed way too far off the path and that Origami King absolutely needs to reel things back a considerable bit. However, that still doesn't mean that I don't want them trying new stuff, though. I mean, we already have the 1000-Year Door as it is, and even if Intelligent Systems made another game that was almost identical to that, then hardcore fans are still gonna say the classic game was better anyway, which is why I think they chose to perfect Sticker Star with Color Splash rather than to rehash something they already perfected years ago. Obviously, nobody specifically wanted another Sticker Star, so I don't fully blame fans for being angry at Color Splash's existence, even if I did like the game. I'm just saying that I don't blame Intelligent Systems for not keeping new ideas like the sticker system in a separate franchise, because when you look at how poorly their new original IP, codenamed Steam, sold, it pretty much meant that they had no choice but to keep making Paper Mario games, which meant that if they didn't want to be creatively stifled by making the same game over and over again, then they were gonna have to keep their new ideas in the Paper Mario series. But the main problem with that is that they definitely went too far. Right now, we're in the middle of an era where it's cool to hate Ocarina of Time just because it was a taboo opinion for such a long time, so I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of people in the comments that say that Twilight Princess is the better Zelda game, and I'm not even saying that it isn't, but in the long run, Ocarina of Time's always gonna be the one people remember because of all the new things it brought to the table, whereas Twilight Princess just spruced the mechanics up a little bit with a monkey wrench here and there. Again, I'm not saying that Origami King needs to be drastically different to the point where it's not even the same thing anymore like Super Paper Mario and Sticker Star were. I'm just saying that it's gotta do something differently if it doesn't want to be the Twilight Princess of the series or become Assassin's Creed is all. However, judging by how on edge some of the hardcore Paper Mario fanbase seems to be over Origami King though, I suppose the series might need a Twilight Princess in order to be able to try new things in the future. I mean, even though Twilight Princess wasn't revolutionary or anything, it definitely calmed the Zelda fanbase down a little bit and made them more open-minded to change. And while Skyward Sword may not have been the reinvention that the series needed, the next 3D Zelda game, Breath of the Wild, certainly made everybody glad that Zelda tried new stuff. But had Nintendo never taken any risks with the Zelda series though, then we definitely would have never gotten to that point, and I wonder if fans would have kept resisting change if Twilight Princess never happened. I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with the franchise playing it safe, but the only reason why trying drastically new things is so frowned upon is because developers fail at it more often than not, since I'd imagine it's a lot easier said than done. But for every 10 Tony Hawk's Downhill jams we eventually get a Breath of the Wild or Resident Evil 4 that make it all worth it. And again, I think that's what Paper Mario's been trying to do this whole time, but the problem is that it just never worked out, and after 3 games that failed to top the classic mechanics, it's time to go back to the roots, because if hardcore Paper Mario fans really do need their Twilight Princess by getting another 1000-Year Door, then I'm sure they're gonna hate Origami King no matter what if it's not the exact same thing as the GameCube classic. And honestly, that kinda worries me, because like I said, even though the game will most likely be different, I still think it's gonna be great. It's patently obvious that the series needed to reel it back in a little bit, and I might be wrong about this, but despite the vagueness of the trailer, I'm convinced that the game's gonna be a lot closer to the first 2 entries than the last 3 were. And I also think it's gonna be different enough from the rest of the series to stand out and be its own thing. Although, with that being said, I still don't think it's gonna be the best game in the series based on how generic the partners look, which is easily the most disappointing thing to me, and honestly not a good sign. But you know what, despite that one bad sign though, the ring-based battle system looks like it has the potential to make you use your noodle, and I get the same vibes from the puzzles as well based on those stretchy arms. As far as the story's concerned though, it's too early to compare it to any other game in the series, but I've gotta say that it looks slightly dark for Nintendo and quite promising too. But with all that being said though, after the reaction Color Splash got, I'm surprised that Intelligent Systems had the grapefruits to not make Paper Mario's equivalent to Twilight Princess. But even so, I can't see the game not being a ton of fun, all things considered, and I hope that the hardcore 1000-Year Door fans could at least give the game an honest chance before burying it, just because the developers wanted to avoid a phoned-in clone of a perfect game that already exists. But anyway, what do you think? Should Intelligent Systems have caved and given us an already perfect Paper Mario game with minor improvements, or are you glad that they're still bold enough to avoid complacency and take risks, even after the reception of Color Splash? Either way, vote in the poll, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody. But let me tell you, if there's 2 people who can make a great Paper Mario game, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Red Jar and Michael D. If you want to be badasses like these 2, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes and all kinds of wacky rewards in the mail. And if you want to make cameos, then send pictures or videos of you rocking any FU Game Crew merch doing whatever you want as long as YouTube allows it, like these badasses you see before you. And as always, like and share this video if you want to help this channel grow, and if you want to prove that you're not down with registered sex offenders, then go right ahead and press that subscribe button if you haven't already. My name's Cameron, all one word, and I'll be back with more videos soon.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.